Hi, everybody. We've got a great show coming up for you today. We're going to be talking about, obviously, again, autism, but this time we're going to be talking about medical language. And hopefully, I will be bringing Leo. She'll be joining me in just a few minutes talking about uh, general and autism. I'll be asking her about what's going on with her son in general, and also be talking about uh, what the medical team are actually using around language. So Leo should be with me in just a few moments. Don't forget, we got some great shows coming up for you next week. On Monday, we have the wonderful Cathay Letty, who's going to be talking about her son Jules, who's in Oldby City. He's got autism and he's an actor. Then next Friday, we should be joined by Carrie Grant. She's going to be talking about her two daughters on the autistic spectrum. So if you're just joining us and you've got any comments or questions, or if you're watching this on replay, don't forget to share this on Twitter, Facebook, whatever platform you're on, YouTube, wherever you are, do share it. And I'll post your comments up on screen as well. So we've got Leo. Hello, Leo. Good afternoon.
Hi, Kev. Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm okay. Happy Easter
Gosh.
to you, Leo.
Yes, happy Easter to you. I did nothing about Easter. Have you done anything about it today?
No, nothing, nothing at all. I've just got a
No,
few, a
just
few,
been.
a few Easter eggs. That's about it.
Did you get eggs? Do you know, I thought for a whole week I didn't go out. So I thought yesterday, I said, oh, Josh is asking me for Easter eggs. So I'm going to pop to the shop to see if I get some. And shops are all empty, as it's been the case, And so I said, oh, Lord. Anyway, when I got back, my next door neighbor, every year she gives him a chocolate egg and one for Stephen. So there's two eggs in the front door. I said, yes, have eggs.
At least you managed to get some. That's the main point.
Yes, and Josh ate Stephen's one because obviously I can't go and visit, so there's no point in keeping it. So I may as well eat it.
I know it's been a while since we last spoke, Leo. Can you just give us an update on how Stephen's doing and what happened from the transition from St Andrews to his own home now?
Well, not quite like that actually, Kev. He went from St Andrews 2 years, 2 years at St Andrews. From St Andrews, he went to the Priory for 4 years, for a little bit over 4 years, to the Priory in Clacton on Sea. So the total was actually 6 years and a bit in two different ones. And so from Clacton, that's when he came to London and to where he is now, where he is living in supported living on his own home.
Mm-hmm.
So at his own home with 3 to 1, 24/7. Mm-hmm. And he's been home for 15 months now. And I can tell you that it's not as easy as we lost our children. I lost my son the moment he went into St Andrews, if you know what I mean. And when I say losing, obviously he's still alive, and I'm one of the luckiest ones. I always say this because I am lucky, but he's not the Stephen that went in. He suffers severe trauma. We suspect he has PTSD, which, to be honest, why wouldn't he have PTSD? From the suffering and the abuse, the physical and all sorts of abuse he got. So every day is a struggle, and it was a long struggle to get him to leave the bedroom. So for about 9 months, he wouldn't leave his bedroom. He has a nice house, about a nice bungalow. He has a lovely garden, quite large, but he won't go outside. He was just he was just too traumatized to leave the room. And yeah, it's been shocking at the things I've seen.
So is he getting the right care and support now that he's got his own place?
Well, there has been issues. I'm not going to lie. The support is better, obviously. He lives in his house and he's not in the prison anymore, because essentially those ATUs are prisons. Yes, it is his home, but it's not as if it is my home. You know, the care is never going to be the same. He is.
So is there any particular reason why you can't be there in his own?
It's another situation where, remember, the plan was always for him to come home to live with me and live with the family, and that's his wishes as well. Even though Stephen lacks capacity, he doesn't really communicate, as you are aware, but he can say little words, Kev. And so he always said, even at the hospital, he said, Steve wants mommy home. And he would give my full address. He knows how to say my full address. But people wouldn't take it as his wish, because he lacks capacity. And so the excuses is all the time is that he lacks capacity, and the professionals will take the high road and decide for him. It's a big struggle when a parent have a child on an ATU or under the Mental Health the Capacity Act, where we lose control totally. And so when the decision making for him to come home and to see what kind of care package you would get under the Section 117, it was made by my local authority and local CCG. And so basically, I just have to take it in and shut up. I looked into the idea together with my advocate, and she is Jane Knight, who is a wonderful advocate who's done so much for a lot of families. And she is also a housing specialist for people like Stephen. And so she put a plan forwards, and they didn't accept it. And the plan was, I even contacted my housing provider to say, underneath my house, there's quite a large area where it can be built. You can build a basement flat. And we requested, my housing association said, we don't see the problem. There is room for it. So we may look into that. But my local authority would have none of it. So they wouldn't even think of looking for that possibility. And the other reason for that was because I live by the Arsenal Stadium. And so it's a very busy area. And so they didn't think it would be appropriate area for him to be at. Now, here's the joke, Kev. The road he lives in, it's a lovely bungalow. He lives in Uxbridge, but the road he lives in is a very busy road, and the Hillingdon Hospital is just 2 minutes walk in the same road. And the bedroom is with the window to the main road, so it's really extremely noisy. So I just think, how pathetic is this? Yes, I chose the house as well. But when we go and see a house, we don't really, because we just see the house and we go. We don't stay there to watch what goes on. It was afterwards that we realized how noisy it is. So the back garden, the back of the house, say from the second bedroom to the back of the house, is very, very quiet. You don't hear anything. And Heathrow is just down like 4 miles away from where Stephen is. We don't even hear planes go by. However, the main entrance area where the main road is extremely noisy. But the house is lovely. It was made really good for him. So it's aesthetically done for his needs, with padded walls, that sort of thing. And the floor heating, which actually is another bigger problem, because of the expense of it to run. But that's another thing. So the house was really well made for him, for his needs. And so I am lucky. How many young people like him that been in ATUs or are in ATUs that have that? Unfortunately, this sort of care doesn't happen to everyone. So I am lucky and I'm extremely grateful. But there are so many things that, takes me the weekend sometimes over 2.5 hours, 3 hours to get there from North London to West London. It's the weekly cost for me to go is about £65 a week. So, still expensive to go. Another thing for about those places, ATUs, is the cost for parents to travel to. Yes, he's in London, but he's still 22 miles away from me.
So how many carers does he have coming in each day?
So he has a team of 15 people. So three to one at all times. So he has, and the shifts are 2 shifts.
Okay. Now we know this is quite what I'm going to mention is quite important, and it goes for many care homes out there, residential, whether they are elderly or people living with autism. But the question what I wanted to ask you, what safety guards have they got in place at the moment with the coronavirus?
Do you know, I'm actually quite lucky. Again,
have all the staff got PPE?
Yes.
That's really good.
Yes, they do, and the care company is actually providing transportation as well for the staff, for those that don't have cars to travel to Stephen's house. So that's a good thing,
So because he's coming into a lot of contact with care staff, 15 staff on a rota basis, they're all wearing protection. They're wearing gloves, aprons, masks, everything.
Yes. So
that's really good to know.
So yes, so that is a good thing. But it still doesn't stop me worry. The staff also, the staff also worried about as well, because they're still getting they're traveling into work, they say, and I can't see him. I can't go visit because of it. And so I don't know. My worry is, what if a member of staff gets sick and I don't know that he or she is sick? Do you know? I am in touch. The director of service calls me 2-3 times a week to update me on things and to see how I am, to see, so we are always in contact. The staff calls me on FaceTime with Stephen every day. So I see Stephen every day on FaceTime. He doesn't understand why I'm not there. So it's hard, really. But, it's no one's fault what's happening. And,
no.
And as sad as it is, as sad as I am that I can't go and visit, and I moan about it, everybody moans, we all moaning about not being able to go and see our children. But realistically, I have to say that it's the way to go for. If we want to stop this horrible disease going about, to safeguard ourselves, and I want to safeguard my staff, his staff, absolutely, because I have to travel on buses and tubes. So I definitely need to not just safeguard myself, but safeguard the staff too. And so I'm extremely grateful that they are turning up to work every day. Do you know, Kev? Because
really good.
there are Yes, absolutely. I mean, there are other families that have struggling with the staff
Mm,
not turning in,
mm,
and that was again was one of my biggest worries. What
mm,
if staff don't turn up, night shift don't turn up,
mm.
and what happens then? You know, but I was always told, even if the staff won't leave the post until the person turns up, the next shift comes in. So even if that shift doesn't turn up or rings in saying we can't go in for one reason or another, there are contingency plans in place. So it
What I
hasn't been
want,
a
what I
day.
wanted to ask you, Leo, if I can, I've just
Yeah.
looked on your Facebook wall, and I just wanted to ask you about this medical form, because people are probably watching this now or watching it on replay later,
Mm.
because it's across YouTube, Periscope, everywhere. I just wanted to ask you, what's this? I know I've heard of the form before, but this medical form you've uploaded, just tell people what it is, what it does, and how people should get one, and what they should do.
The one that I put in about the medication, or and the
No,
terminology, or
n-
the other
n-
one,
not the medication, the health
the other
passport.
the passport. Yes. So
Okay,
I was actually quite surprised to be sent that this morning by my local CCG.
okay.
So
Is that is
it's
that is that a template?
yes,
Okay.
yes. So, not for as far as I know, not many families have had that, or even charities have received that. So I was quite impressed that it's Sunday morning, Easter Sunday, and I get that. So it's say that was made for Stephen, but it's a good thing. It's a good passport for anyone else to use.
So
So say
after when the video is finished today, if you could post that on the comments box of this video and share
yes.
it out, because I'm sure other people would want to get a copy of that because it's very useful. So go on, Leo, tell
I
us
think it's
about it.
very useful. I was impressed. I must say, very impressed with it.
Mm,
And say for instance, a young person gets sick,
mhm,
and that person is admitted to a hospital, not an ATU, a hospital, a general hospital,
mhm,
under the COVID-19.
mhm,
Then you have you are prepared with what you need, the questions you need to ask, and the answers you get, as well as the visitation.
mhm.
Because again, we've been told I mean, it's a thing going around. It's a big circle, really. No, under uncertainty, no one knows what do we do, or people, if in cases of that. Because for instance, as you've heard, a place in, was it in Dev no, it's in what's that place in the country where they put the no resuscitation, the
Yeah,
uh,
that was somewhere down south where it was mentioned on the
yes,
BBC.
can't
Yeah,
remember
where
the name of place now. um
yeah,
you know and we all got scared about that,
mm,
and yet it's only that little place that said that. I think it's one of the places actually that Panorama did a program about last year, on care, where they didn't have enough money. It was a really bad place to be autistic, disabled, or sick,
mm,
or old. And so I think it's very discriminatory, really.
mm,
And really, under the Human Rights Act,
mm,
is appalling.
mm.
That
Well,
a
I don't know if
person.
you I don't know if you saw the update, Leo, last week. The NHS now with regarding to DNRs, do not resuscitate. If
Yeah.
people are watching this now, that they cannot do that.
Yes, I saw, and
It's
that thing
got to be written down. I know I
exactly.
saw an article in it was one of the tabloids today, and it was saying that
I
they
didn't
were
see
asked
it.
they were
Yeah,
asking one. I'll try and share the article in the comments later, but it was asking one family who had a child who wasn't autistic but was quite severely ill, were asking them to sign a DNR form.
my God, it's just horrible. Absolutely, it's like a method of euthanasia, isn't it?
Mm,
Let's kill them, because let's get them out of our hands. Um. Anyway, so that plan. format that they got this morning, the passport format that they got this morning, was actually, I think they did it because of it. There was a lot of conversations I had with them about it, and I think they wanted to make it clear that that is not the position that they would take. It explains, for instance, parents have a right, you have to be, a parent have to be consulted whether you if the person has capacity or not, and that's perfect, because the problem is quite often is that the parents views are not taken into account. And I know that there are groups of advocates, self advocates, that say, but what about the person? Why can't the person speak for themselves? But quite often, and as it is in my case, my son cannot decide things for himself. So I should be consulted, absolutely. And so I think it's a
Well,
great.
I think rightly so. But every parent, every carer who's looking after somebody with autism needs to see a care plan or an advanced care plan.
Absolutely.
To see in that care plan whether the doctors or the GP, because I think what happened with the BBC case, what happened was the doctors sent this care home a care plan, and the doctors put on the DNR in it, which they shouldn't have done that.
I know, terrible. I just actually talk of care plans. I just requested, because my Stephen's care plan's been updated in the last few months due to one for the dole that needs to be done. He because of living on his own, he needs that. So it was renewed in December. We haven't received it yet, and so the new care plan went with it. And so I haven't got it, but I want to have it because I want to make sure that he is safeguarded. And so we're getting the care plans that been updated in all sorts. Because when he came home, his his care changed, and as he goes every month, as he grows every month in his own home, it's been different from what it was in the ATU, and so we changed slightly. We done some other, also done a lot of training with the staff as well, that are more appropriate for his care. And so I need to have that. And I think it's important that we parents have the updated or the standing care plans, because we cannot go to a hospital, have nothing on our hands, and so suddenly the doctor decides to do whatever without consulting us and not looking at what's best for our children.
What I wanted to ask now, which was the topic of this show today, which I'm going to bring up on screen now because it'll probably shock a lot of people. And also, I know you mentioned as well recently that I'll let you mention it yourself, Leo, but you mentioned about, I have to laugh about it, and I shouldn't laugh because I laugh because it's just absolutely ridiculous. It's just diabolical that, medical professions can be saying this. But one doctor came into contact with you and mentioned about Stephen's condition with a list of medications, but just tell people what they actually put on that form.
So they ignored his diagnosis completely. So Stephen is diagnosed with severe autism, severe self-harming, ADHD, and well, I forgot the other thing. But instead of naming his, his diagnosis, they call. I mean, I'm laughing, but it's not funny, because I've had this discussion with them previously. They're saying mild retardation and childhood autism. I mean, first off, what is childhood autism? So does that mean that he had autism from that his autism now is not autism anymore, what is it then? And I think it's just absurd the language these professionals use. But what really gets my goat, really infuriates me, I get so mad about it, is stating mild retardation. I mean, first off, the R word is so offensive that um, we haven't used it in the United Kingdom maybe since the mid 90s. You
No.
know, only I don't even know if this is appropriate. I know some countries in the world that still use it. My cat trying to sit on my lap. I know that some countries in the world use the R word, but
Well, personally, Leo, I think you should be going back to them and writing an official complaint. I think you should be writing an official complaint to their head of department, because I just think these words, childhood autism, is a grown adult, that shouldn't even be
yes,
on there. And that word retardation. But what I'm going to do now, Leo, I'm going to bring up on the screen now. I don't know if you're able to see it. I'm not sure if you can
yes,
see, but it's on a
yes,
big screen now at the moment.
yes,
And we're just going to go through here some of the words which people still actually use today,
yes,
and
which
and
is
on the government,
the government website.
yeah,
Yes,
and what they
I
should.
sent that to them last year because and that before you do that, let me tell you, in response to sending a letter, I last year we had a new nurse, the community nurse that came on to look after Stephen's medication after he came home from the HEU, and he sent a letter also using the word, and I had never seen it. I was incensed. I mean, I was more shocked than anything else. So I wrote an email to him and I said, "How dare you call my son a retard? My son is not a retard. He has severe autism. And he has a um, neurological uh, disorder." Does not apply. This word retardation should never apply in a document at all. And he got really mad at me because he said, "Oh, you offended me. I was never calling your son that, but." It's the word that professionals use medically. And I said, "Really? I had never seen it. After all these years, I had never seen the word being used." And so I think is offensive. Uh, you know, my it doesn't matter what level of intellect a person has. Doesn't give anyone's right to use such language.
No, not at all. So we got the list of conditions, well, not conditions, but we got a list of really horrible language which people still use today. So the first one is to avoid using the word handicapped or the
Another
word,
one, I hate it.
yeah, and to use the word disabled and not use the word handicapped. And lots of people still use that even today. Even in
Yes,
fact, a lot of people in America actually use that word still today.
they do, and they are the ones who use the R one as well.
Yeah, yes, rightly so. And the other one, afflicted by sufferers from victim of. So
That one made me laugh because it's just silly.
it should be name of condition of impairment. The other one to avoid is when people say confined to a wheelchair or
Yes,
wheelchair bound. They shouldn't be
bound.
saying that. They should just be saying wheelchair user.
That's a thing. I always, even though I didn't know the terminology before a long time ago, but I never dared use that. I would always say, "Oh, it's a person who uses a wheelchair." Never say. It's just ridiculous. Where did these words come from?
Then the other ones which really annoy me and really frustrate me is mentally handicapped, mentally defective,
Ah,
retarded, or subnormal. What the hell is
what
subnormal?
the hell is that? You
So
know?
they should be using the words with a learning disability,
Yeah.
singular, or with learning disabilities, plural. Other people still use the word crippled and invalid when they should be using the word disabled.
Oh my God!
Some people in it, I don't think I've not really heard it over here in the UK much, but I have heard it in other countries, including America. They still use the word sometimes spastic, which I can't
I know, I've heard it as well, and I'm thinking, what is it? That is like a word from the 1800s.
Yeah, and stop using the words able-bodied. Use the word non-disabled. You know, some people still use the words mental patient, insane, or mad. You know, this is from the 1930s, where they should be using person with a mental health condition, and not really a mental illness as such. They should be using mental health condition.
And you know, Kev, going to that, no wonder my son and so many of our children in this country, currently still 2,500 people in 80 years. And yes, let's just say the word correct, because many people might not know what ATU means. It's Assessment Treatment Units, which is essentially a mental institution. And so no wonder they sent out my son into one, because they consider people with autism to be mentally unstable or mentally ill. No wonder we see those words, and you see it. I have hundreds of reports from Stephen when Stephen was at the ATU with those sort of words, wording, and it's shocking when you open your letter, when you open this parcel that comes with the 50 pages of a document, of a report, and you go through it and you see this sort of language. It's absolutely shocking.
Nicholas sends on a message on Facebook. She says, sending lots of love to you, Leo. Stay strong. Also, Catherine on Facebook says, I hate the R word. I get called it a lot by cruel people.
Cruel people. I wouldn't say cruel people. I'd say
bullies.
Ignorant and bullies. It has to be. Yes, it is cruel, but I think it's mostly because they're being bullies. They're being just ignorant completely.
So we'll just come back to this list, Leo. So on this list here, we've got, let's have a look. We've got people still use the words deaf and dumb or deaf mute. They should be using a deaf user of British Sign Language or a person with hearing impairment. People still use the word the blind, which people should be using people with a visual impairment, blind people, or blind or partially sighted people.
Yeah.
People still actually use the words an epileptic, diabetic, depressive, and so on. People with epilepsy, diabetes, depression, or someone who has epilepsy, diabetes, or depression. Now, this is a typical one which people, when they see somebody who's small or growth of short of stature,
this one I've got. I've been called this one loads of times.
dwarf or midget.
Midget. I am called midget a lot. I'm only 4.11, and so I'm called a midget.
And the other one, Leo, what I didn't really pick up on, and you know, when people say they shouldn't be using the words fits, spells, or having a tack if somebody has a fit, they shouldn't be using the word fit. They should be using the word seizure.
Seizures, but I have to say I'm a bit guilty of saying fits. Spells and attacks is stupid. But yes, I have used the word fit. You know, for instance, they diagnosed Stephen with seizures, you know, epilepsy, at the ATU. Only turns out it wasn't. It was only for an excuse for the psychiatrist to give Stephen more antipsychotic drugs. You know, because for the antipsychotic drugs that are given to people with autism in the ATUs are medication given for people with epilepsy, and they are used as mood stabilizers. And so, in order for them to have a proper reason to get that medication from NHS England for free, they had to adding a name to it. So they said Stephen had epilepsy. I battled with them about that. I knew he didn't have epilepsy. When he came home, I insisted that he would go be tested. And he does not have epilepsy. And finally, the neurologist has taken some of that medication off. But and I did use the word fit. I never saw my son having a fit, But
yeah,
now
like I said, I've used that word before, fit, and it's something which it should be, which they'd say to avoid using them words and to use the word seizure. So it's a learning curve for me as well, and probably for everybody else who's watching this. But Leo, thanks ever so much for coming on today. It's been a pleasure to have you on to catch up on what's been happening and that. Take care. Send my love to Stephen, and I hope he, I hope he is safe with this coronavirus going on, because it must be a worry for a lot of parents at the moment.
Yeah. It definitely is a worry for all of us. Yes, for all the parents, and some of the parents. Can I just say this? I'm okay in many ways, because I know my son is being looked after by good people. However, there's some of our friends who have children still in ATUs, and they haven't seen them for 4 weeks. Some of them haven't even had a phone call. So I'm extremely sad for them and worried because they don't know what's going on, what's happening with their child. And I think they are probably more at risk of getting infections, the disease, than my son is. And I say that because there are loads of people in one area, whereas Stephen is on his own home. So the risk is a little bit less, I think. And so I send them, the parents, these families, so much love, and keep strong and keep the faith. And together we can do this. Stay at home. Stay at home.
Stay at home. Yeah, definitely stay at home.
As hard, please. It really is hard for one who has severe PTSD myself, and depression and anxiety. It's very depressing, and it's an anxious time for anyone already. And I do know how hard it is not for me to close the door and run to my son. But we have to stay home. If we want this to end, we need to stay together and fight together.
Thanks, Leo. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. So that was Leo joining us today. Thanks, Leo. And like Leo says, she says them words, the final words, stay at home. And lots of people are still going out and, meeting people, which they shouldn't be doing. People really need to stay at home. So thanks, Leo, for being in on the show today. It's a pleasure to have you on. I know we spoke before on one of my shows, but it's been great to have you on. And also, Leo will be posting later the health passport, which you mentioned. She'll be posting that on the comments box on Facebook. We'll post it on Twitter as well. I'm sure she'll share that on Twitter, so people can get hold of one of them passports too, which is really important. So if you're watching this now, please do share it around so we can get this information out. But we really wanted to touch base today about the medical language, which the professions are still actually using, not just here, all over the world. So thanks for joining me today on my show. Don't forget, tomorrow I've got another great show coming up for you. I've got the one and only, who's really funny, Cathay Letty. She's joining me tomorrow. She's going to be talking about her son, Jules, who's on the autistic spectrum, and he is an actor. Then on Friday, I've got Carrie Grant. She'll be joining me talking about two daughters on the spectrum. Thanks for all your comments. Thanks for all your messages. Stay safe, everybody. Take care. Until tomorrow, I'll be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. talking with Cathy. Have a great Sunday, everybody. Take care.